Hello and welcome from Berlin. We will start in 3 minutes. Hello, welcome to the webinar. We will start in 2 minutes. Hello and welcome to the world's first Alta Via webinar on a Thanksgiving Day. Before I hand over the word to Art Wirkut, who will be holding the webinar, let me quickly explain some of the housekeeping rules. In the GoToWebinar software, you see a chat option, and if you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to enter your questions there. I will moderate the questions and we'll address all of them after the webinar content. That's about it. Art, take it away.
Great. Thanks, George. All right. Hi, my name is Art Wirkut. Firstly, happy Thanksgiving. So welcome to our webinar. This is the webinar, as you might know, regarding using NetSuite in Germany. Some of you might be international organizations where you are planning to expand your global footprint with a new subsidiary in Germany, while some of you might be local organizations where you already have some operations and you're here to find out whether NetSuite is compliant with your business requirements. Let's find out how we have made sure that NetSuite, the global suite, is made local for you. Let's take a look at our brief agenda for the day. Here we talk about introducing ourselves as a company, Alta Via. We'll also introduce Oracle NetSuite, the platform we are talking about today. Our offerings include a variety of tools. We'll talk about multiple tools encompassing 3 aspects, essentially: legal requirements, financial compliance, and operational practices or leading practices for your company within NetSuite. This is complemented with 2 product tours as well. So we'll see all of this functionality in action in our demo environment. And towards the end, like George mentioned, we'll have a question and answer segment where feel free to park your questions, and then we'll take as many as we can in our limited time span. Let's jump right in. So about Altavia, we are a solution provider NetSuite partner. We have been a solution provider partner since more than 10 years now, with over 200 implementations globally. We have a strong presence in the DACH region. We also have some team members, of course, Berlin and Germany being our base. We have some team members in Poland and Switzerland as well. Here you see some of our happy smiling faces at the Berlin office. This is a list of our partial clientele. You see industries, a variety of industries right on your screen. Some fintech companies or software providers. You see wholesale distribution, manufacturers, industries. You see a wide range of business verticals spread across geographies. Some of you might also be attending this webinar. So this is our partial clientele. Let's move on to introduce Oracle NetSuite. So if you've not heard about Oracle NetSuite yet, this is world's #1 cloud-based ERP platform. They got an unprecedented head start since they were found in the cloud. Back in 1998, when they were found, this was cloud first. Other ERP vendors, of course, initiated their cloud journeys later on, but this was cloud first, cloud only. Today, we have more than 20,000 customers globally running on the latest version. By that, I mean NetSuite actually releases 2 upgrade versions every year, and it makes sure absolutely all its customers are running on the latest version at any given point in time. This is a full business suite, so a true public cloud business suite where you see a variety of business verticals like your financials, inventory, order to cash, procure to pay, all of that in one unified suite, which really means you get to enjoy one unified source of truth. Today, we have customers ranging from small scale industries all the way to multinational organizations. You see the largest customers also have north of 500 subsidiaries running within one single NetSuite account. And you have customers, NetSuite claims to have 203 plus countries and territories where they see transactions already. Let's take a look at their stairway for localization. So we already saw 1998 was when NetSuite was found. Here, 2009, they decided that Germany was a viable market for their business plan, and they got the first certification, which was the IDWPS 880 in 2009. This was the year when Altavia also acquired the solution provider partnership. Of course, along our journey, we also became SDN partners, which stands for Suite Cloud Developer Network, which essentially lets us build and implement specific bundles or suite apps in the Suite App platform that help you with enhancing your NetSuite experience. Then 2017, Oracle decided to invest further in localization. This comes in the form of additional local representation in the form of personnel, in the form of more offices in Germany, and of course, many localization bundles. As we stand today, we have a huge list of localization bundles, some of which we'll find out and learn more about today. And we have north of 1,000 customers already running on NetSuite in the country. Let's take a look at some legal requirements now, and we'll then find out how we have provided solutions for these legal requirements. So essentially, you see there are 3 main sections on your screen right now. First one is taxation, then the GOBD compliance, and of course, the financial reporting formats, which is the HGB or the HGB format. When it comes to taxation, of course, Germany has its own tax nexus. We need the tax codes specifically for Germany. And then you also have the Elster integration requirement, which is your monthly and yearly taxation reporting. For GOBD compliance, we have the IDEA audit file requirement for making sure you have an end-to-end audit trail of your system, and you have to make sure that the data sits within the country. You of course have archiving requirements and some operational requirements like locking transactions so nobody else can go ahead and manipulate anything that has already been posted. The way we come up with these solutions is as follows. So Oracle already introduced the international taxation module. So this bundle comes with NetSuite. In future will be replaced by the Suite Tax. But at this point in time, we have the NetSuite International Tax Bundle, which gives you the German nexus, all the German standard tax codes, or of course reduce all the tax codes. We'll take a look at them in a bit as well. And we also have the preliminary VAT and the yearly VAT declaration reporting. For GOVD compliance, you have the NetSuite Audit Bundle. Despite that, you always can check who did what based on system information and any kind of audit trail reporting. Oracle also introduced a data center, which is in Frankfurt right now. So all German customers, their data sits within the country. When it comes to archiving, we have multiple custom solutions. And of course, you can get in touch with us for a recommendation, a very personalized recommendation. Some customers might want to have incoming AP invoices archived in a specific repository in a special way. We can, of course, look at custom solutions available for you on that front. We have codified locking transactions, and we'll take a look at some operational requirements like that in our slides in the future, in a couple minutes from now, say. For HGB reporting, our bundle actually ships the native NetSuite financial report builder tool along with a layer of layout. The layout comes along with our module that gives you the HGB reporting for your financial statements, which we'll see also, like the PNL or the GU file. We'll talk about balance sheets and Clientele report in a little bit. Here on this deck, we see some leading practices for making German users a bit more user-friendly. This essentially takes care of making it more usable in Germany. So here again, you see this divided into further topics like taxation, accounting, banking, AP, AR, automation, and some operational topics like the travel expenses, for example. When it comes to the taxation, we have our German bundle that takes care of a few topics there, like validations of your entity's VAT IDs. You might already be aware of the 2020 tax changes that German authorities introduced for the second half of this year. And we'll also see quickly how our German bundle helps you change in the rule. And we also will take a look at the VAT clawback. If you have customers taking discounts while payments, or you are taking some discounts while vendor payments, we'll take a look at the behavior of the VAT clawback. Accounting, of course, has specific topics like the SUSA, the Clientele, HGB, which are off the shelf available in our German bundle. And we also have a DATEV export module. So DATEV happens to be a very accountant-friendly software. Many bookkeepers prefer to close their books within DATEV, and we identify this as a requirement. Thereby, we also have a bundle to take care of this, to push all the NetSuite data into DATEV. For banking, you have the NetSuite's native electronic payments module. This takes care of SEPA and DATEV or DATEV, which are compatible with all German banks. Of course, these are also European specific, so EU compliant. If your bank has any additional layer that goes on top of it, we can also go ahead and customize and add those kind of requirements from your bank. For AR automation, we have the Exrechnung or the electronic invoices that is coming up in our German bundle as a new feature in the near future. Regarding other banking and AP automation topics, we always go with the recommended solution called Fast4. So Fast4 has a tool for bank reconciliations, which essentially takes care of matching your bank statement along with Open AR and Open AP transactions sitting in your NetSuite, which really means you can automatically create those bank transactions on the fly with the import of these bank statements. Likewise, for AP automation, Fast4 offers a tool called Scan and Capture. This gives you an advantage of the OCR technology. So any incoming invoice from your supplier can, of course, be scanned, and you can create a native NetSuite bill transaction with the help of this tool. Of course, needless to mention, you can always use any kind of other personalizations you might have. So like approval matrix or any kind of other customizations can coexist with this tool as well. And we'll lastly talk about some other operational practices here, like, for example, the travel expenses module that takes care of employee expenses with additional per diems and tax controls for expenses. We'll take a look at that in a bit. So these are the tools that we offer, the logos of which are on your screen right now. If you missed our Dunning Bundle webinar, which we conducted 1 month ago, please go ahead and check it out on our YouTube channel. We also have the vacation and resource planning, which gives a user-friendly graphical interface for users to actually go ahead and check availability of resources. Then we also have these three, which happen to be our topic for today. The ones in the middle, where we talk about DATEV export. That's the bestseller suite app that Altavia offers. We talk about the travel expenses for per diem, domestic, international travels, as I mentioned earlier, and the German bundle that takes care of all your reporting formats, some operational compliance topics like locking transactions, etc., and then of course some taxation rules that we'll take a look at. Let's start off with the German bundle. Like I mentioned, we have quite a few taxation reports or taxation features that come along with our module, like the VAT check feasibility. This runs on all entity, customers, and vendor master. We also have the VAT clawback check. So this essentially makes sure that the VAT or the discount you take is also showing the impacts on your taxation. And then we introduced the new taxation rules back in July when the authorities here came up and announced the new taxation in Germany. We'll also take a look at some printouts, some functionalities that we introduced along with our bundle. We will take a look at some financial reporting, the HGB and SUSA as an example. And on the way, we'll also talk about some transaction locking functionality as an example. All right, so let's take a product tour. The first product tour is that of the German bundle. So we are logged into our demo environment. First things first, let's take a look at the customer master. We always start with the masters. Let's open, say, two customers, ACNAT and Bound Vision GmbH. So here we have, for example, the two customers that we'll take a look at. Here we have the legal name of the customer master. We, of course, have the subsidiary. Every example that we follow today is based on Germany 1. We, of course, have the address details coming from my customer record, and under financials, I have the tax registration number also recorded right here. Now let's go ahead and check the validity of all this information that I have. So I can click on this button, check VAT ID. You would notice the moment I click on this, NetSuite reloads my page, and now I can go down to the subtab financials, scroll all the way down to the VAT ID check results, and here you will find all the details. So you see all the information is valid. I see the timestamp when I checked it. I see the 200, which is the success code. I see this is valid information, and of course I can find out the company name is valid, all the address details are valid. Okay, great. Let's take a look at the other example. This is the Bound Vision customer. Of course, we have the same set of details, like the legal name of this organization. We have, for example, the address also in place, marked right here. Then we can go to the financial tab and see we also have the tax registration correctly recorded. Let's go ahead and click on the check VAT ID details. Again, as I mentioned, NetSuite will refresh the page, and thereby it will show the updated results under financial subtab, and all the way down to check results, the VAT ID check results sublist. And here, there you go. We see an error code 204 and the timestamp, and you see this is invalid. The information I have is invalid. You see the customer name, zip code, city, street, everything is invalid. You see you also have some validity timestamps. So it was valid from and to this date until end of November last year. However, at this point in time, all this information is not valid anymore. All this information actually is nothing but custom records sitting in our database. So, which means I can use this for any kind of reporting or saved searches, or also dashboard alerts for that matters. So let's take a look at the reminders. For example, we have valid VAT IDs to adjust as a reminder. You can set this as your dashboard alert for yourself. We can also quickly check the English translation that my browser helps me with. And here you see some information is valid, while some information for bound vision GmbH is invalid, as mentioned by the error description. Since this is all custom record structure in the backend anyway, you can always go ahead and play around with saved searches. You can create email alerts for specific team members to go ahead and adjust them and whatever. Let's take a look at some mass update functionality that comes along with our bundle also. So this is to check the VAT details of customers and vendors as off-the-shelf features. We also have some DATEV functionality, but we'll talk about that in some time. Here, when it comes to checking the customer IDs or VAT IDs of the customer, this is a native tool for mass updates where you can always put in criteria. For example, you want to look at specific customer base. Maybe you want to look at customers you've made transactions with in this month or something of that sort. You can always go ahead and adjust the criteria and run the mass updates. So in the back end, it goes ahead and checks for every customer. We recommend to do this monthly before you run your tax reports. Let's take a look at some features. Let's take, say, order to cash as an example process, and we'll talk about some features here. I actually have a sales order already, and we'll take this as an example. That's a sales order for a particular customer. You see this is dated November within this year. So I should see the new tax details, but let's see, I have 2 items with some rates coming in, some quantities, and of course, I see the taxes used are not correct. I see the old 19% tax recorded as the tax code, which of course is wrong. So this also, of course, can be viewed right here on the body. I have a gross amount, I have the tax total, which considers 19. Here we've introduced the button for checking the validation of my tax details. So based on the date right here, since this is this year, second half of this year, NetSuite actually validates that, reloads my transaction, and you will find out that all of this data is checked and rectified. So now you see the gross amount is changed. The tax total is reduced to 261.60 cents, and you can find that out by checking the tax codes, which is the S2, which is the new 16% tax. Here, of course, the gross amount remains or reduces. We also have features where you can continue using the same gross amount. So for example, some businesses might want to increase the net amount so that the gross amount really is the same. We can have these kind of validations for your business as well. And of course, this is probably valid for e-commerce type customers where you do not want to change the total amount, the gross amount of your transaction. We can go ahead and configure that. Let's create an invoice. Again, a very native transaction, the invoice against this particular sales order. Let's check some details. We have the amounts, we have all the items, we can verify the quantities are correct, the tax details, of course, come from the sales order. So everything looks fine. I'm going to go ahead and save my transaction now. All right, this gave me a confirmation that this invoice is successfully saved. Let's take a look at some features that we introduced along with our bundle now. So we will firstly, of course, you see a few buttons for dunning. This is the dunning module that we talked about in our last webinar. Check it out on YouTube. This is the tax button that we also talked about on the sales order. And now you see a finally posted button. So then, since this is a posting transaction, you see the edit button right here, where users can go ahead and change details. But the moment I click on post finally, you'd notice that the edit button is gone, which means the transaction is locked for all the users. And we mark this with a finally posted checkbox differently. So this is the transaction locking feature that we talked about in our presentation a little while ago. Let's go ahead and process a print PDF. This, of course, can be automated for your purposes. If you want to send out an email right after invoice creation, all of that can be configured. So here I have basic information, our address, customer's address, items, amounts. You also see some tax details right here, tax codes used, and the tax sentence or the statement. We, of course, can go ahead and customize or personalize the headers and footers based on your corporate identity or CI/CD fonts, logos, etc. can be managed. Let's see how our module helps you manage all the labels and the taxation information. So back on the invoice under billing subtab, you see there's a special field called PDF texts. This essentially is the backend setup, which sits under lists, custom, and PDF texts. What we've done is through this kind of a setup, we achieve a full customization of your invoice PDFs, where you can actually store the field labels. You can see different information or how you want to present that information. The tax sentences are also available here, and this eventually translates onto the PDF by the PDF texts field on the invoice itself. Let's continue our process to accept customer payment. So the customer is now paying us for our goods. And this comes onto the native NetSuite transaction for accept payment. Of course, I'm going to go ahead and pick a bank account. Based on your processes, you could have an undeposited or maybe an in-transit kind of a hop skip process. Either way, this is native NetSuite functionality. I'm just going to go ahead and scroll down, and let's apply another invoice for the sake of our testing right here. You see there's already a discount taken for the initial invoice, and for the other invoice that we are applying, I'm going to go ahead and put 50 euros as an additional discount that the customer took from us while processing his payment. So here you see all the information, the payments, the discount taken across the two invoices, and the bank account selected. I'm going to go ahead and save my transaction. So this says this is successfully saved. I see this is deposited. And of course, you can verify all the details right here. You see the bank account is correct, the accounts receivable looks fine. Both the invoices are applied. You see the discount taken, everything looks fine. We, of course, have to check the GL impact. We create a VAT clawback transaction using a journal. Let's look at the general ledger behavior of this payment. What we see really is, of course, the bank is debited, settling my open receivables across the two invoices. However, you will see a discount of the total amount, which is 87.93. This, based on German authorities, is actually a wrong posting, where we do not have any VAT implication shown in this GL impact. So what we did is we achieved this with a linked journal entry that is automatically created. And here you will see the 87 is actually split across the two different invoices. This case, because we see there are two different VAT implications as well. And you also see the split amount right here. When you go to the GL impacts, you would notice the behavior of this is, of course, splitting. It's a reclass entry really. So you split the 87.93 cents into specific accounts or specific items, and you also see the VAT component of this breakdown right here. So this is the added advantage that our VAT clawback journal entry gives you. Along with this, you also get to see the memo, which essentially records the invoice number as well. So this is important for reference purposes later on reporting. So we saw how the VAT clawback works on customer payment. It's a similar feature that comes on the vendor side as well. Given the limited time, let's not take a look at that one right now. For now, I'm going to go to the reporting section, and I'm going to show you the implication of the VAT clawback in the sales by tax codes report. So this report essentially holds all the information of your tax codes, sales by tax codes. You see this is already grouped by S2, which is the 16%. You have the S section below it. You have different transactions listed down with all the details across columns. So you have the net amount, the tax amount, the gross amount already listed down. And we will look at this particular line, which is the journal 99. That's the first invoice discount that we offered the customer. And then you also see the 50 euro discount, which is sitting under the standard tax code right here. You of course can find out details by drill down. You can click on any amount and it takes you to the transaction itself. That's a native NetSuite functionality. You also see the invoice numbers in the memo, which is the rightmost column. Now, since we are talking about reporting already, let's take a look at some compliant financial reports. So you can always go to save reports. You see a bunch of saved reports, which are compliant localized reports. I usually prefer to have them as my shortcuts right here. Let's open a few of them as an example. Let's see the SUSA report, the GUV, which is the PNL or income statement, and we'll also take a look at the balance sheet. So here you see the SUSA report, which is really an exploded version of the trial balance. You see all the accounts information on the first column, and then all the accounting periods spread across different columns. All of this, of course, since it uses NetSuite's native report builder tool, we can add any filters or customize it further as required. You can always go ahead and export this or build any kind of schedulers or email it to your colleagues or yourself for that matters. So that's the SUSA. Let's also quickly take a look at the PNL or the GUV, the HGB format of the PNL report. Here you see different sections. This is the custom layout, which is shipped along with our module, our German bundle. And you see different sections grouping different accounts, different account types in this particular report. Of course, this is also customizable, so you can add filters, can customize to add any kind of additional personalization. Let's go to the balance sheet, the HGB Bilanz. And you also see an additional layer, the new layout that comes, the German that the German authorities require. You see the Activa, Passiva section with its all subsections correctly marked on the report itself. Now, since we are using the NetSuite's native feature, this is drill down friendly. So I cannot emphasize on this enough. This is, of course, going to use all your reporting features that NetSuite already lets you have. So all drill down functionalities, exporting, scheduling, etc. So here I can further drill down and look for specific transactions sitting in that particular account, let's say. Let's go back to the summary of this report. And I would like to just quickly show you how the report is configured by our bundle. So of course, this is the native NetSuite financial report builder tool, which we can confirm by going to the backend of this report, let's say. And here you see all the different sections of your report, the way they are configured. So I can always go ahead and define the behavior of any particular section. This is achieved by a layout that comes with our module, the German bundle. And like I said, this is really full native to NetSuite, which means you can add more columns, filters, or you can add access or audiences and the behavior as you like for the reporting. Great. The last topic we will talk about when it comes to the German bundle is the international tax report. This is actually native to NetSuite. We already talked about the NetSuite international bundle. We saw the sales by tax code, but we also have a similar purchase by tax code. Now we'll talk about the tax report native to NetSuite functionality available in your platform. Let's pick Germany 1 as the subsidiary. And I'm gonna go ahead and change the language. You of course see this is for the tax period of November 2020. I can go ahead and refresh my page to make sure everything loads up with the correct accounting period and the information is pre-populated. So this is the preliminary VAT report for November 2020. You see all the boxes are automatically filled. You see the amounts are always automatically set up across the entire report. This also gives you drill down abilities, so you can always check which transactions sit in the box 81, for example. And here you will find the list of these transactions. The journal 99 is the one that we processed just now for the customer discount. You see the gross amount discount is -50 euros, net amount implication, tax amount implication as well. This can of course be exported to Excel if you want to do some internal analysis based on Excel, that's fine. So this becomes our monthly preliminary report as we saw right now. The next feature available also natively is the yearly taxation report. So let's go ahead and change the date range from fiscal year 2020 to fiscal year 2021. I'm going to go ahead and refresh my page. You will notice NetSuite reloads the page to actually give me the VAT declaration for the entire year. So here you have our VAT ID. Again, all the details are pre-populated. All the different fields and boxes are already pre-populated by information. You have the same functionality as we saw a little while ago with the drill down. You can just click to learn more, and this becomes your yearly declaration report. Of course, you can export it in XML format or print it out and submit a physical copy if needed to the German authorities. This is natively shipped with all German accounts. All right, so that was our first product tour. Let's go back to the presentation and move on from there. Great. So we decided to localize your suite a little more. We have some operational topics and the DATEV export to talk about. The first one being the travel expenses. We mentioned about this earlier. This takes care of adding the per diems, which are also coming from the German authorities for domestic international travels. We also have some features where we can automatically set the tax codes based on expense categories. And when it comes to DATEV, we actually go ahead and map all the master data with the DATEV information. So your accounts, customers, vendors are mapped along with transactional data to standard DATEV formats. And since this is completely fully compliant with the DATEV import requirements, we receive this certification from DATEV for their compliance as well. Let's take a look at these functionalities in action. So the first thing we will do is we will process some transactions right here. Oops, sorry about that. There's some technical error. We'll go ahead and try to start this over again. Okay, great. Sorry about that. So here we are going to look at the employee expense report tool. This is, of course, native NetSuite. We are using the native NetSuite functionality for expense reporting, which means you can always use this from the employee center or any other role you might have. Here we just have a custom form that sits on top of this particular record. And here I have the journey subtab. The journey subtab lets me add details like my journey details. So here I have the first domestic journey from Berlin to Frankfurt, say first week of November. I started off quite early in the morning, and this was with a couple of days. So I was back by say 5th of November, and I reached quite late. So this was within Germany. Of course, I have some other features also. We can mark it billable to customers, or you also have the car kilometers or passenger details that you can add if needed. The second trip, let's keep this international. So I'm going to record a trip to New York City. This one started off in, say, the second week of November, around the 10th. And I left Berlin at, say, 11 a.m. And this was a trip for a little more than 1 week. So I returned back to Berlin on the 19th at, say, 3 p.m. And here the country of destination is USA. You see different regions available right here. This is because different regions have different per diem regulations. I'm of course going to select New York City. Again, you have the same functionality. You can mark it billable for specific customers, or if you had a car journey, etc. Let's go ahead and save this. The first thing you would notice, of course, this is a successfully saved transaction. You would notice that there is the journey details, which you entered right now. And you see NetSuite has already computed some expense details right here without you having to enter anything. Where this comes from is the journey details. So you have the journey details where it lists down absolutely by day. So you see, you spend 3 days within Germany, you have spent quite a few days in New York City, and the expenses tab shows you all your per diem details. So here you, for example, can see the per diems for days that you spent within Germany. The first and last are slightly less because I spent some time in my home city as well. The same goes for my international travel to New York City, and all the information is automatically used by our module to pre-populate the expense details right here. Now, since this is the native NetSuite expense reporting, you can always just go ahead and edit, add more expenses. So for example, if you have any other expenses, you can just edit this. You can go ahead and add, say, customer entertainment expense and so on and so forth. We have features that can also automatically select the tax codes for you based on that. You also can see the details of your journey, and you can also change if, for example, your meal was sponsored by the employer or was free on the flight. You can also make changes right here to record the right information. Going back to the journey, you can always keep adding new journeys. So this is open record, so you can always go ahead and add another journey, for example, and save the record. So this becomes our travel expense module. Since this is native NetSuite, you can always have any sort of approval process or any other personalization that you might already have. Our bundle can coexist with your customizations within your NetSuite account. Let's take a look at some backend features of how this is set up. So we'll talk about 2 pages right here. So one is the rate card for per diems, and we'll also talk about the setup of the travel expenses very briefly. So firstly, the rate card gives you the list of per diems by country, by region, where you see different countries have their per diems already set up by our module. And then secondly, we have the travel expenses setup configuration. So this is where you can essentially define the behavior of your expense module. For example, what should be the kilometer rate, whether the meals were paid by yourself by default or the employer by default. You can, of course, define the taxation behavior of the module. All of that can be defined on. Okay, so that was a little bit of our travel expenses. Let's talk about the DATEV export. So this sits under management. I have 2 things to talk about. One is the export and the settings behind it. You can, of course, process a new export by clicking on the DATEV export new. You always have the blue button to trigger a new one, for example. Let's take a look at one existing DATEV run. So this was a successful run for the period of November, where we see we have selected masters, all entities, all accounts, and all transactions. So our tool produces these files, which are completely compliant. You can, of course, repeat the export for it to re-trigger the process and come up with a new file. Let's download the file to see how it looks like. So here you see the file that our module produced. You see all the information. You see the Gegenkonto, which is nothing but the contra account, along with the account information. You see the document number, for example, and all other columns as DATEV requires. This is a completely 100% DATEV-friendly import format, and since we resemble their import requirements one-on-one, this is certified by DATEV. Great, so this was the DATEV export run. We'll see how this run knew the field mapping or the account mapping. So we have the back end of it, which is the setup. And in the settings, you would find some regions like, for example, access details. You have accounts information. Here you can define what are your default liability accounts, your default AR accounts, and more importantly, you have the tax codes mapping right here. You might already know that NetSuite has tax codes set up, and it also, of course, has a unique control account, but DATEV, on the other hand, has its own tax control accounts. So here is where you can define which tax code should move into which DATEV tax account right here. This is how our setup knows. Apart from that, of course, master data can also have this mapping. let's take a look at the chart of account as an example, and we'll see a random chart of accounts record just to see how it is mapped with the DATEV information. So on the chart of account master record, you can actually map with essential DATEV account information, and thereby our tool knows which account goes where in DATEV. Right? That concludes our second product tour. Let's go back to our presentation again. So what we saw today, we saw a full compliance of German regulations, whatever the authority needs when it comes to the HGB reporting formats. We talked about some banking processes. We also talked about many other operational compliance or making it user-friendly in Germany. Of course, all of this is 100% modular in nature, which means you can pick any permutation and combination of the tools we saw today. For instance, if you say you have accountants closing your books in DATEV, but everything else you're okay, you can only go for the DATEV model or only go for 2 of these modules. Of course, all of this is completely modular and can coexist along with your customization, of course, can coexist with each other. All these local regulations are kept up to date from our side. When it comes to reporting formats, we can support you to configure the report based on your personal requirements, or we can also train your NetSuite administrator to actually go ahead and add specific sections in the financial statements, or if you want to remove certain sections for your case, or maybe in the future you add a new account and you want to define where this account should sit, all of this can be kept up to date. And when it comes to the per diems, we push an update to absolutely all our customer accounts. So all the region and country-based per diem rates are kept up to date every point in time. German authorities releases this information once a year. And the moment we find this information out, we push an update so every customer of ours gets this, and you don't have to worry about it at your end at all. Needless to mention, all of this that we saw can be further personalized. So if you have specific pain areas in your business processes within your NetSuite system, we can always define custom processes and make a tailor-made experience for your business needs. That brings us to the last segment, which is the question and answer round. So I would ask Georg to again join us and check if we can support any questions.
Yes, thank you, Bart, for the speaking and all the insights. We'll now continue with the Q&A section. I will read every question, and then the team will address and answer the questions.
Great.
So the first question, is there any bundle available which allows us to apply payments in one currency to an invoice which is in another?
Okay. Well, this is not really a bundle. We do have some solutions to make sure you can support payments or in different currencies, but to answer your question, not a bundle as a solution. This would be a customized service from our end.
Second question, could we also see a Kontoblatt example, please? So I just discussed it with our bundle management. We have such a Suitelet, such a view in work, and it will be released within December. So all customers who have a subscription to our German bundle will get it as soon as it is released. We are not going to show it right now. Next question now regarding the DATEV bundle. Is the DATEV interface compatible with multiple subsidiaries? I have unmuted Peter von Zimmermann. Can you answer the question? Okay, we cannot hear you right now.
I have to unmute it as well.
Now we can hear me.
Yes. Good afternoon. So yes, actually the settings path has shown they are done by subsidiary. So you are able to define different settings per subsidiary. And with this, you can use it for multiple subsidiaries as well. Yeah, I think what is a real issue might be, and this is a bit open, if your subsidiary you want to have in one subsidiary another DATEV chart of account, and for example SKR 03 versus SKR 04. This is something we don't support yet in an easy way, but there is a solution. But that's where it's on our enhancement list. But of course you can, and customer actually running this in multiple German subsidiaries, but the assumption normally is they using basically the same chart of account in DATEV for all subsidiaries. And because the mapping is done on the account is done once and not by subsidiary in the moment. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you. Next question. Can the DATEV interface manage multiple expense accounts for inventory?
That's a good question. Actually, I think it's in DATEV. You know it's posting like for the total cost model. So we don't move across all inventory movements. But this is only done in one lump sum posting, named inventory changes. And of course, if the question comes, if you have, I assume the question is if you have purchases, which normally in NetSuite, because the cost of goods sold model would run into inventory, but in the COGS in the total cost model runs into expenses. How you map this, and this we don't have other solution than just from the account you have used for the inventory. So the answer is good question. We have to look at it. If this is an enhancement, we have to look at.
Thank you. Next question. Does the German bundle include financial reports using the total cost model as opposed to the native NetSuite cost of goods sold model? So to repeat,
yeah, we have the profit and loss statement in both versions. So it's as a GKV is a UKV version, and I think we might have seen in the demo. I don't know which one we used.
We use the HGB WB GUV.
Which is the total cost model, Gesamtkostenverfahren, in opposite to UKV, which is Umsatzkostenverfahren or cost of goods sold way. But it is both supported. But anyway, it is not as easy as you might know. The one who asked the question probably might know that the posting logic in NetSuite is a cost of goods sold and not total cost model based, which is of course gives us a little issue on the assignment of the accounts.
Okay. Question answered. Next question. Is the DATEV bundle included in the German bundle, or is it an extra order?
So it's a separate bundle. So these are two independent bundles. We can, of course, support you with both. But yeah, to answer your question, two independent bundles.
Thank you.
Yes, the basic idea is really to answer this a bit more. The answer is really the DATEV bundle is the one which are you probably using when you are not doing full accounting or complete legal accounting in NetSuite. Then you choose a way to export it. That's our experience, and then you need this one, which is quite a big module. If you go for to do everything in NetSuite, then our German bundle is a good help you to fulfill your requirements. So this is somehow, that's why we really separated this. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because most of customers need either or.
Either of the two.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's clear. Thank you. Now, referring to the German bundle, you showed that the VAT clawback works for customers. Does it work for vendors as well?
Yes, it does. We of course have the same functionality sitting on the vendor payments as well. So if you take a discount while processing a payment to the vendor, it also creates a very similar VAT clawback journal entry. Different directions, of course. but it has principally the same concept. Again, we create a linked journal entry with the purchase taxes on the journal visible. So yes, it does support vendor payment discounts as well.
Next question. This question came in German. I will read it in German and also translate it.
Thank you.
Ist die Schnittstelle im German Bundle bidirektional? Is the interface in the German Bundle bidirectional? Now, to try to understand the question, we have one interface in the German Bundle, which is querying the VAT authorities for the VAT ID check. Yeah. So, is it bidirectional? Let's quickly explain how it works. Maybe the question resolves.
I don't think that the question is according to the German bundle. That's a VID check is a one directional. We ask the tax authority. That's quite obvious that there is no need for us to change the database of the tax authorities. So that's, I think the question is more on, I would assume, more on the German bundle, on the DATEV bundle. That makes more sense to say we have a DATEV export and we have a DATEV import. But I think I'm not sure if the question is meant into this direction, but this would make more sense to me, because the other interface, the only interface we have in the German bundle, which is the tax check, is of course one directional only. It doesn't make sense in both directions. Maybe they can get a confirmation if it's meant into this direction.
I just get a confirmation. The question was regarding the DATEV bundle.
Yeah, sure. Okay, that makes more sense to me. So the question is on DATEV import, and the answer is that our bundle does not provide a solution there, because the import of data of postings into NetSuite is not very complex. You just use a journal entry or transaction import. There is no need for any additional functionality. It is just a question that you bring the DATEV data into the right structure and then you import it. This is very much used, for example, for payroll, and we never seen a need for a bundle. The export bundle for DATEV is much more complex in terms of we have to fulfill the very special format requirements of the DATEV accounting system, which has always account and counter account and all the structure. Though this is much harder to achieve just with native NetSuite tools to get this really into the structure we create. That's why we decided that our bundle supports the export. If somebody needs support for the import, we can easily help them, but from my perspective, if it's a journal entry import, for example, it's really very straightforward, and a little consulting is enough to support this. Yeah?
Yeah, thank you.
Right. Next question, again, German-English translation. Welches System zwischen NetSuite und DATEV ist führend? Which system is leading between NetSuite and DATEV?
Okay, well, this depends on your processes. So if you're looking at operations, then of course NetSuite would be your leading system, where you have your order to cash, procure to pay kind of processes. However, when it comes to, if you're using both, I would assume you are closing your books still in DATEV. So for a finance function, for your finance team, then DATEV becomes the leading system. Of course, still fed by data coming from the DATEV export.
Yeah, so that's I think all the operational data, the leading system is a NetSuite system. We export it, and you can make your additional closing transactions in DATEV, but in reality, the NetSuite system is a leading system. I think you should also understand the reasoning. We had a lot of discussions on people wanting to use NetSuite DATEV as a leading accounting system and then mirror back everything to NetSuite. And the issue is not a technical one, but a conceptual one, because in DATEV you have very limited information available. So for an invoice, for example, you normally just enter one line, which has the customer and the gross amount in revenue, and that's it. and everything else is then in the DATEV it gets posted to the tax as well, but there's no information on items, on anything. So this information is of course not enough to go back to NetSuite and create an invoice in NetSuite, because everything is missing. The rich ERP data are missing. So it is the NetSuite system the DATEV system is a very reduced accounting only system. NetSuite is a large, rich ERP system, and so the backwards way is just you need to there's no way. You cannot invent all the dates you don't have in that data. And so that's why it's normally the NetSuite system is a leading system.
Okay, thank you.
Make sense?
Okay. Next question. Ist es möglich, die Payroll nur in DATEV zu fahren? Is it possible to do payroll only in DATEV? I think that refers back to our conceptual.
Okay. So as a concept, then if you're doing it only in DATEV, that would mean NetSuite's data then complements your month-end reporting in DATEV only. And then, of course, your financial statements in NetSuite won't be something that you would refer to, since you really have only partial data. So yes, it's just a conceptual model that you define for your organization then.
Yes, but it's on the other hand very easy to upload from our life experience to upload the payroll data from DATEV in an aggregated version as a journal entry into NetSuite. From my understanding, most of the companies having the full picture in NetSuite are doing this. It is just a every month similar journal entry upload.
Next question.
Thank you. Yep.
Next question. Referring to the German bundle, you showed that the VAT ID check and other entity information check works for customers. Does it also work for vendors?
Yes, it does. It's exact same functionality on vendor master as well. And you see again on the vendor master, the financial subtab, and again the VAT ID results. We also have the exact same kind of a mass update. Also runs the same custom record structure in the backside, so you can always create again same saved searches, email alerts, and so on. So yes, it runs for vendor master as well, exactly the same.
Okay. So another conceptual question. Does the DATEV interface apply payments to invoices in DATEV, or must that be done directly in DATEV in a separate step?
So this is about DATEV interface creating payments in DATEV, nothing to do with NetSuite.
Yeah, let's consider this. We have an invoice which was transferred to DATEV in the first month. In the second month, we get the payment, and the DATEV interface contains the information of the payment with the second month upload.
Okay. Well, perhaps we can check with Peter or a DATEV consulting team.
Not so deep into that.
I think in NetSuite we get the invoice paid in the second month, and the question what is happening in DATEV? How do we get the information that this invoice is paid to DATEV? And that is a really conceptual open topic of the DATEV import. That we're importing different transactions, but the linkage between the invoice and the payment, could be end to end, so you can pay multiple invoices, credit memos, whatnot, and apply them all to one payment. This what the NetSuite export does, and be more concrete, the DATEV import can do is just accept the one payment. But what there's no concept, as I know of, in the DATEV import to send the apply information from NetSuite to DATEV. But this is a DATEV issue and not so much a NetSuite issue. That's
a limitation of DATEV, where we cannot apply transactions with an import, so we can send that information.
It could be an end-to-end things, and there's no way. I just have one line for the payment and no further information to say. And by the way, this is there's not even a concept of having a linkage between the transactions in NetSuite that in DATEV that I could say, by the way, this is paying this and that other already transformed transactions. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So as in every good case, the answer is it depends.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, looking at the list of questions, this was the last question. Yeah, thereby we conclude the webinar. Thank you very much, Bart. Thank you very much, Peter, for helping us with the answers. See you next time for our next webinar, probably in January.
Okay.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.